Hey, what is going on everybody? My name is Ryan and welcome to a brand new video. This is going to be a mini-series in which I will talk about my adventures in the Transatlantic Professional Go League. The Transatlantic Go League was launched in May this year, where every weekend top players in Europe and North America battled it out in high-quality best-of-2 matches. And better yet, all games are streamed on Twitch. Spoiler warning, if you haven't watched the stream yet, pause the video, go watch it. I'll see you in a bit. Let's get started. Going into game 1, round 1, I was really nervous. I just had a baby, also cleaning up my research and writing out papers, also teaching a little bit, just so many things were going on. And all of that made me really nervous. Also, the fact that I'm playing an amateur play in the first round also really amped up the pressure because the amateur players are definitely on form. It's because they had to play a qualifying round to play in the main tournament. So they were obviously, the best players in the pool. I also didn't really know what Remi's style was. Like, I played a lot of the other European pros before, so I kind of have a good sense of, what to expect. So there was kind of like a wild card for me. Didn't know what to prepare. So my strategy going into this is, try to do what I do best. Is I want to play solid and give my opponent territory pressure and force them to start the fights, which would give me an advantage to begin with. That was kind of my strategy going into the game. We'll see how that unfolds. This is the beginning of the game where I was white. Now, in the top left, I let black have this shape, which is, in my opinion, just slightly better compared to the other shape. Some people would argue differently, but that kind of also shows you how I was just going for relatively calm opening. But obviously, Remi was up to something because he immediately attached, which is a very common move nowadays, an AI move. So after black attach, white typically Hane's under. If white Hane's on top, that wouldn't be very good in this case because after this, black would probably just connect now. Black would go into the corner, and if white blocks, then locally it's not very good. But if white just lets black go out, I believe that's also not very good. Also, these 3 white stones are kind of not doing very much. And because of that, I Hane'd under. So black, of course, Hane's. And after Atari, I went with the Atari. So this is also relatively less complicated because in the other variation, when white extends up, black would Atari and extend. And in this case, black would probably just sacrifice because black would gain very good shape on the left side, especially relative to the 3 white stones, which again aren't really doing anything and they're kind of weak as well. So this is something I really didn't want. So I decided to just Atari, and you'll see in a bit why this is a really simple variation, because after descending, white connects, and basically we just capture 1 stone each. Although here black made a pretty big mistake. I think black should definitely clamp, because this will allow black to Atari under, which would give black much better shape. It's really not worth it for black to exchange the capture with white turning. And you get to see why that analogy works, because in the game, when black makes the cutting Atari and capture, when white Ataris, black has to capture, and so black's shape is not that good because originally black could have just, after clamping, going under, black could just do a 2-space extension. I think black's overall stones are very good. And you can see that white's 3 stones are very awkward. And so these stones would definitely not make any territory, and in the future would probably even get attacked. So in the game, when black made the cutting exchange, where white had to still capture the 2 stones, I think black still should have made the 2-space extension. But in the game, when black played the tiger's mouth, I was relatively happy because when white get this extension, the 3 stones are much in better shape, as well as later on, perhaps white could also attack black's group with the peep and diagonal. Now at the end of this sequence, black focused on the lower side. Also, this is a little bit different from what I expected. So what I was expecting was that maybe black would just jump or do a knight's move. Perhaps jump because it sort of indirectly reduces white. And then maybe just defend the corner. I'm not sure it's because I'm a little bit rusty recently, but this is sort of the typical variation I have in my mind nowadays. Just sort of the normal stuff, you know. Everyone is so casual. But of course that doesn't happen because black invaded. But I don't really like how far this invasion was, because when white gets this one space high double approach, black is actually in a relatively awkward position. So for example, if black attaches up, white would still be able to find some way to split. White could even extend up, but even if white just plays the knight's move, this local variation is still, I think, too comfortable for white. Because, you see, all of these black stones aren't really doing that much. It's not really threatening white in the lower left corner as well. And so I think this would definitely align with my original intention of playing a slow and steady game. Now, going back to what happened in the game, I was also a little surprised with the attachment, because also this allowed white to hane and extend. Now, this is a relatively common variation that you see nowadays with new sort of AI joseki. And by sacrificing the 3 stones, white gains control of the corner. And not only that, there are forcing moves associated with the aji with the black stone. Aji just sort of means some forcing moves that we could play, so just some sente moves white can play. For example, the Atari move as well as the knight's move are both going to be sente for white. Black would have to respond. And because of that, after the cap, sorry, I made that exchange before capping, but now this stone is really in the middle of nowhere. And in order to live, black has to live very small, or at least make white's outside very strong. And I'm not sure if you noticed, but there's this diagonal that I mentioned earlier, right? So it's sort of like a snowball effect, where all of black's group will eventually get weaker and weaker, and white would benefit by attacking all of these groups and making points along the way, and eventually go for the 3-3 invasion. So after playing this move, I've already got all of that planned out in my head. So I'm going to attack the lower stone, force all of that, and then do B10, attack that group, maybe do a knight's move and do some sort of attack, and then finally go to the 3-3 point. So I'm like, perfect, okay, we got this. And then stuff happened. Now most of the attack on the lower side went as planned. So after black extended, white was able to not only get rid of the I space, but also force black to go sort of this narrow path due to the forcing moves over here in the N7 area. Now, after these exchanges, when white hane, this was all going very smoothly, right? The run doesn't work because white can just push through. Black is completely being split on both sides. Until later on, when black pushed and cut, white had to connect back due to the weakness. Then after black Atari, black connected. All of these were relatively comfortable forcing moves. And in the game, this move was a little bit slack, I felt later on. Right after I played this move, I got really scared. And that is because I neglected something super important. If black just diagonals and lives, even if white can get the Atari, this knight's move is pretty much sente. Now, and that is because the white's group on the left side isn't completely alive yet. So if white has to live, and then black can connect back, but now if white captures the 3 stones, it all looks so small now. For example, if white pushes through, black would get the Atari. White has forgotten about one of the critical things in Go, which is hold board thinking, right? Black has so much influence now in the upper right, and white's capture here isn't really that much if you think about it. Definitely going to be a difficult game, at least a very unclear game going forward into the future. So at that point, I was really, really worried. Now, luckily for me, I guess, black did not choose that variation. So I believe this was a relatively slow move. at least it should have been at the Atari, because that would have made much better shape. After get that Atari, white would not be able to get this. And right now, white would capture the left. And this left side is huge. After this, white's territory is all of a sudden really bumped up. And even though black can capture this, there was even a ladder breakers, strictly speaking, like this. So black really missed this opportunity. And I did check this with AI. And I think AI felt that it was about 50-50. So all that good feeling really didn't carry out to the end. But after black sacrificed the left, however, this game was pretty much over. And that is because, the left side was just too big. Black didn't get anything to compensate, and there's not really much potential because after white got b10, the enclosure wasn't sent anymore. And just because of that one little thing, there wasn't really anything too big black can expand on. For the simple reason that if black plays g15, white is just going to jump in from the other side. And if black hanes and extends, white is just going to play the knight's move. So at this point, it is already completely unwinnable for black. So over here, white made a little bit weird shape, but that didn't really affect the game. And so later on, there were a couple of moves here, but I don't think they really affected the end result. Let's just go back to this moment in the game because it's so important. Black didn't really have to deal with this group quite yet, and this left group was the most important one. And the main reason is because if white extends, black can actually hane here, and due to the aji, white actually cannot separate the two groups. So white didn't really gain too much from the attack, especially because the left group is now kind of in an awkward position. It's not completely alive. After winning this game, it was a small confidence boost because, as I mentioned, I didn't really know how strong Remi was, so that was a huge uncertainty factor that was less uncertain. And the fact that winning a game, just gives you a confidence boost because at least you got that one in the bag. So the second game also took a similar turn. When black pincered white's lower side, black is sort of pressuring these three stones while expanding this boyo in the lower right. Now in the game, white invaded here. So, of course, white is threatening the three black stones in the upper right, especially after the diagonal at n17. That makes the corner much stronger, allowing white to threaten the three stones. So, I actually don't think I dealt with that too well either. Because even though black got the hane, double hane, right? This is a common way of sort of settling the group, making it a bit stronger, right? This was a tiny bit greedy, I think, and I don't think it's really that necessary. And that is because of white's next move was actually a really good move. In the game, white played this large knight's move. It makes black's shape so uncomfortable that now it's kind of difficult to play good. I mean, if you tiger's mouth and extend, white could hane and you kind of have to edge through the empty triangle. And if black doesn't do that, then it's still it's really awkward because you don't really want to just fix it, right? Because it's not going to be that efficient. And you don't really want to also attach because that would make white stronger. And that is what I mean by kind of awkward. It's none of these moves seem ideal. And especially something like that you don't really want to play because the hane also threatens the shape and it's just going to end up, that's disgusting. Because of this uncomfortable shape, if we go back to the game, when black had a choice, I really considered just playing the tiger's mouth. Now, the reason why I didn't play here was because if white just diagonals and jumps, white can actually, again, sacrifice the white stone, because white already gained by these exchanges. And the problem is that when black tries to capture, there's just so many forcing moves. So there's a big uncertainty factor associated with it, where white would have at least a lot of co-threats and a lot of potential ways to make trouble in the future. So in the game, I still went with the more territorial style. Just take the big moves and keep the pressure on the opponent. So now white has to do something about black's uncomfortable shape because the lower right setup is actually quite good. So in the game, I decided to make the Hane and Tiger's Mount, which is a common way of dealing with this. And white just actually went with the Atari. Now, in the game, I chose a simple variation, but then it actually ended up being too simple because of this later. So right here, when white makes the Hane, actually Remi pointed this out to me when we were reviewing after the game, that this makes black's shape very uncomfortable. Black can't really Hane because, this group it's not dead, obviously, but you don't really want to play S12, right? It's Gote, it's small points, and that would be very inefficient for black, right? White would get the first move in the middle. So if you can't really do that, you can't really make it in good shape. So you can't attach either because of the liberty issue. You cannot play K13. So that makes the shape uncomfortable again, and what black would pretty much have to go here just to get out. And simply because of this, white would have a lot of options right now. White could just, if I were white, I would just play some jump in the middle to make this group stronger. And now white has a very formidable top side. In the game, white extended, which allowed black much more room to breathe, and the shape in the middle was much better. This is an extremely important part of the game because we're just entering the mid-game, many weak groups, and a whole world of possibilities. So if you want to test yourself, you can pause the video right now, see where you would play, and if you get the answer correct. So I'm going to review the answer now. White should definitely protect these 4 stones. These 4 stones are not only against black, but if black attacks it, black would naturally expand the lower side. You might be tempted to protect the 3 stones in the lower left, but these stones actually have many ways to make eye space. For example, the Hane and Tiger's Mount. There's also the diagonal. So this group is not in immediate danger, which means white should probably play a jump here, or just in general, a move to help the 4 stones make shape, or perhaps make some eye space. So personally, I would pick a 2-space jump over here. So in the game, I believe white made a fatal mistake, which was the diagonal. Now, this move is a little bit too greedy, I think, because it doesn't really consider the whole board. It is definitely a huge move because now all of the top left is white's territory. Unfortunately, white does not have enough time to do that because both of these groups are in danger of attack, and black has a very big moyo to build by attacking. So I believe after black gets the first move, black is very happy about the game. And so later on, it was just a very complicated fighting. So I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty details of that. And we can see that white is really having a hard time because all these groups, white would have to sacrifice one or the another. So white got the good direction here, but white had to sacrifice those stones. And eventually, we get to a point where I got a little nervous again, which is in the middle here, where white made a bit of a mistake. Because of all the Aji exploration here, white could actually cut first, sacrifice, and then get an extra cut over here. Black must capture, and now white can Atari using the other direction. This would be extremely important because if black connects, white could push and push. And when white breaks through, not only the corner gets cut off, white actually connects back. So this was, in my opinion, a big chance for white. Although black would not sit and die, but this is a very important breakthrough opportunity. So in the game, because white accidentally exchanged the other push first, now when white cut it, black has this senti move. This ascendant was so important because now when white cuts, there is no Atari. So unfortunately, white didn't seize the opportunity. And this is the thing in fast games, is because it's just so hard to read all the moves. And in Byoyomi, anything can happen. Right? So after white connects back, here black was still able to secure the right side. So I got really nervous there, but I got lucky. So even though white can attack the group, but black secured so much territory on the right side that black is definitely leading at this point. In general, I was relatively happy about both of these games, but as you saw, a few very nerve-wracking moments where the game could have went either way. That was the beginning of my adventures in the Transatlantic Professional Go League. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to drop a like and check out our membership and Patreon pages. My name is Ryan, and I will see you in the next video on my games against Pavel.